Hi to everyone. My name is Tobias Bader. I'm product manager at ownCloud, and I'm happy to show you today some new features that came with the latest release of our new product, ownCloud Infinite Scale. And so just as a quick recap and to make sure that we are all on the same page, ownCloud generally simplifies how you work with your files, as you can access, share, and collaborate on all your files from anywhere. And so for some examples, what some of our users do with ownCloud is to provide a more convenient way actually to access files, for example, via a Windows network drive, or they are looking for a user-friendly replacement for exchanging files via an old FTP server. Many also want to get rid of the necessity for a VPN client or in order to get access to the organization files. And many users are also happy that they can edit Office documents in the browser, meaning that they don't need to rely on a native desktop app. And so these are all use cases and examples where we can simplify work with ownCloud. And Ben, I think you prepared a quick survey. If you could start that now, that would be interesting. Yeah, and the question is, do you already have a file sharing platform like that? That would be good for me to know so I can adjust the talk a little bit. So please select one of the two answers, yes or no. Do you have already a file sharing platform? And in the meantime, I would continue. Many have one already. 39% already have a file sharing platform. Interesting. Okay, cool. Nice. Good to know. So the question is, almost every one of you has one, looks like. So the question is, there are many other solutions out there that can do the same, and what makes Infinite Scale different? First, we are an open source company developing open source software, and that brings some benefits for the community and also for paying customers. When you are using proprietary software, there's always a risk of vendor lock-in, meaning that you get dependent on vendors' products, services, or their systems. And with open source, and especially with the Apache 2 license that is applied to the Infinite Scale source code, this risk is mitigated as it allows you to be independent from a single vendor. And furthermore, open software is not tied to the financial health or strategic decisions of a single company. So even if the original creators stop maintaining it, the community can still continue developing it and ensuring that there is longevity and sustainability. And of course, there's always the option to customize and adapt open source software to your specific needs, which is something that is not always possible with proprietary software. And last but not least, with access to the source code, everyone can inspect the software for any security vulnerabilities and understand how the software operates at a very fundamental level, which provides, of course, transparency and can be very crucial for security critical applications. So with open source, there also often comes the enablement for data sovereignty, which means that you basically have your data under your control by running mostly the system on your own infrastructure, so on premises or maybe as a managed service or in the cloud of your choice. So let's now get to a point that is new with ownCloud Infinite Scale compared to the PHP-based ownCloud that exists now for over 10 years. And that is the cloud native architecture with microservices. So to give you an idea why we moved to a completely new architecture, let me quickly explain what the actual problem with the former approach was. And this is something that could maybe happen with ownCloud / Nextcloud or any monolithic architecture based solution. So typically you have a server that runs some Linux operating system with some kind of web server, MySQL database, and PHP. And that is what you call usually the LAMP stack. And now imagine, this is what you call the LAMP stack. And so one of the problems that could appear now is that a user uploads somewhat 1000 high resolution photos and wants to see small preview images in an overview. So we are talking about these images here. These need to be generated. These are small copies of the original images. And the point here is that this is quite some work for the server. So what happens is that the server starts to generate small copies of the photos, but this might slow down the database, PHP, and in the end, the whole user experience. And in a worst case scenario, a user could get just no response from the server, and this is typically what we all want to avoid. So the advantages of microservices, basically. First, scalability. In a cloud environment, applications need to quickly scale up or down based on demand. So with a microservice architecture, you can scale individually components independently. And here as an example are some microservices that we have in infinite scale. These are, for example, antivirus or search, or the previous service that we are speaking about. And the advantage is, if this service fails or gets slow, it does not directly affect other services. And still, the user would not be able to see the preview images, as you see them right here, but they would see other placeholder icons whilst the whole system stays stable and performant. And if you recall, this kind of error is way better than just giving no response as we have seen it here. And still the user would not be able to see the preview images, as I said, but the system would stay responsive. Another advantage of the new architecture is that it allows you to scale and to optimize resources, because in fact, you can run each service on a dedicated server and only use them as you need them. So this can be more cost effective in a cloud environment where you often pay for the resources you use. And another big improvement that comes with ownCloud Infinite Scale is the ability to run without a database. Again, let me give you a quick introduction what the problem actually is here. If you upload a file in a database related solution, two things happen. On the one hand, the file gets registered in the database, or speaking in non-technical terms, you can imagine this as the kind of office in our setup that does the paperwork for the warehouse, meaning the storage. So the office would take care about all the metadata, and in the warehouse, the actual file content would be stored. What now happens if a user wants to download a file is that the office checks if the file actually exists and asks the warehouse to bring it to the user. And the problem here is that we get a single point of failure if one of both entities fail. So the whole system would fail. And there are even more problems, because if you store more data, you also need more databases. So what happens then is you want more data, you add more databases, and so on and so forth. And at some scale, the system gets really complex and quite error prone. And with this, also really cost intensive, because you then need lots of maintenance and really good people who can take care about all this. So the solution here is to store the metadata on the storage as a single source of truth. By that, you can scale easily without having to take care about a database cluster. As you saw, so on the left, you see our office, meaning this was the database. And now we moved all these metadata to the warehouse, and by warehouse, I mean to the storage actually. So this means that next to the actual data, there will be the metadata be stored, which means that you only need to take care about the storage. And this has, of course, the advantage that you can just increase the amount of storage and scale out easily without having to worry about any database architecture issues. So to sum it up, with the new Infinite Scale Server, we focused to provide a resilient system that can be scaled easily and is still very cost effective. So I talked about the backend side now, and I want to switch to the perspective of the end user. Because with Infinite Scale, we provide a completely new concept of how collaboration in teams can take place. So in the old world, so to speak, when Albert, this is our persona here, shared some files with colleagues, his colleagues would only see the files itself without the containing folders. So as you may know, this can be really chaotic when you look at the shared with me folder. Yeah, because here you don't have context to the files anymore. You need to find where was this report, and this is even a really bad case depicted. We have two files which have exactly the same name, and you can only distinguish them by the path, which is not present here. And another problem is with this approach that if Albert leaves the organization, his files would get orphaned if he does not a proper handover. So we call this usually that people leave with their projects and kind of take their files with them. And the solution we developed for this problem is Spaces. You may have heard of this. First of all, they are separated from the personal section, and the ideal projects, and they are the ideal place for projects or to organize files in departments. Yeah, and Spaces are the ideal place where collaboration takes place. And furthermore, Spaces can have a dedicated quota so that you can stay in control of storage use. And this is one of the most important features of Spaces. Spaces can have one or many managers. So managers are people who are in charge for the space. This means that they decide who else can access the space as a member, so to speak. Then they are displayed as a member of a space, but they are not managers. And managers also decide who else can be a manager of the space, because you can, as you see, you can have multiple managers in a space. And because having multiple managers also easily allows you to transfer a project, for example, if a colleague leaves the organization. This is also a huge advantage for the organization itself, as you avoid personal data silos and enable users for self-service of the spaces. And in the end, this was our goal, was to take away work from the admins by enabling users for self-service. Some more highlights. We have at the moment 3 web office integrations. We have predefined sharing roles. This is the can view and edit. And you can also adjust custom roles where you can set very fine-grained permissions for a share. So you are not locked in with only can view and can edit. We have a secret file drop. With that, you can just share a link and the receivers can anonymously and secret drop files into this link, so to speak. And everyone who has this link can drop files and does not need to log in. So this is, for example, useful if you want to collect homework or photos or any kind of documents, for example. We also have the version history. With the version history, you can easily track the progress of a file and more important, restore files at any version. Our sharing links are also really powerful because you can set an expiration date or a password. And this is really unique. You can also create multiple links for the same resource. So this means you can have different links to share them, for sharing them with different people, for example, and you can also revoke the links again. We also provide tags. With tags, you can just organize files or folders independently of file names or folder structures. This is also very useful. We provide full text search. The search provider that fuels this search, as you see here on the bottom, supports also a lot of document formats. These are just some examples. So this is also a really powerful feature. And this is something I personally like very much. We paid very much attention implementing really good usability features. So here in the screenshot, you of course see the drag and drop. But also we have common shortcuts so that you really feel at home when you use the interface in the web browser. It almost feels like a native application, like your Windows Explorer or Mac Finder. We also have some different view modes, so you can adjust the look and feel to your wishes. If you prefer the list mode, or you can have the tiles view, you can switch to light mode, and you can also increase the size of the tiles to a very big size, for example, here. And one bonus I wanted to show you today also are space templates. So space templates are a way to create easily folder structures in spaces. And that really can happen within seconds. So what we see here is we see a project template that I created. So this is just a folder, and I created once this folder structure. So I did this all by hand. I only need to do this once. And what I then can do is I can click on create space from selection. So what happens then is the system takes all the files within the folder we see here, meaning the project template folder, can be any folder. Then it asks for a name for the new space. Then it creates the space. And if you look into the space, we see that all the files and folders that have been in my template before are now easily copied to this project moonshot space. So this is really a way where you can create lots of spaces within seconds and guarantee a consistent folder structure throughout your whole organization. Furthermore, we have some security and compliance things that we need. One thing I want to point out is the file firewall on the top right. and the antivirus. This is quite new with the latest release. Yeah, and also what I'm myself really proud of is that we have full compliance with WCHG accessibility, which provides good access for impaired people. Okay, so to round it up, in general, with Infinite Scale, we focused on these 4 benefits. We want to provide a secure and compliant solution that is cloud native, as I showed in the beginning. And with this, it's also a very good basis for a cost-effective solution. And last but not least, we have a big focus on providing a user-friendly interface. And that's it for now. Thank you for your attention.